guys? It's Peter from Backwards Entertainment, and it's time for another unmasked movie review. So, I saw the big event movie of the year, Avengers Endgame. I actually saw this opening day. I just haven't gotten around to making a video about this. So, just a quick recap. I really liked Infinity War. I thought that was a pretty solid movie. I think the only thing with Infinity War that was really not, it wasn't even bad, it just didn't hit me, was the characters fading away. That didn't hit me so much, but a lot of that was largely due to the fact that I know these characters are going to come back, because I know there's another Spider-Man movie greenlit and all this stuff. So that stuff didn't emotionally resonate with me with Infinity War, but a large part of that was not due to the movie itself, but because of my knowledge of the grander plan that Disney and Marvel have for this universe. So, but I still really liked it. One of the biggest shocks with Infinity War was Thanos. I was not expecting him to be as good as he was. I really liked that he wasn't necessarily a sympathetic villain, but he was a very human feeling villain. He actually had like emotions, he was dedicated, he was driven. So I really liked that. It was one of the best Marvel villains we've had in the MCU. So I didn't know anything about Endgame. I was very much in the same camp of everybody else was, where no spoilers, trying to avoid spoilers as much as possible. I avoided the internet, avoided any sort of memes. I only saw I think I saw one trailer. I really don't watch movie trailers that much. I saw one trailer for it because I'm like, I'm going to see it whether I watch the trailer or not. So the blinder I go in, the better I can go, the better reaction it can invoke out of me, because there's nothing I could predict. And I really, at the end of Infinity War, I had no idea where they were going to go with it, other than that obviously they're going to undo everything that Thanos did. So I go to see the movie, I saw it, and everybody loves this movie, and I liked it, but I didn't love it, and I honestly think that Infinity War was the better movie. Now, that's not to say that I think this movie is bad, or even, it's just, when you have 22 films building up to this, and then you have what was the previous movie that built up to this, which was like a holy shit event, the payoff, it's not bad, it's relatively satisfying, but it's not as epic as I was hoping, and I don't know if it's because my expectations were too high, or they overhyped it. I don't know how bound to the comics they are on this, because they do take liberties. I'm pretty sure they take liberties right away in this film. And I'm going to review this without spoilers, so pardon me for being vague, but I really, like a lot of people, want you to go to see this movie blind, because I could be in the minority on this, I don't know. So the first thing that came out with this movie was the runtime, that it was 3 hours, and yeah, that's pretty rough when you hear a movie's gonna be 3 hours. Now, that didn't throw me off. It just put me in the mindset of, okay, no snacks in the movie theater, nothing that's gonna make me have to go to the bathroom. So when the movie starts, again, I'm not gonna spoil anything. I'm gonna be as vague as possible. When the movie starts, though, they really kind of cap off the plot of Infinity War really quickly, and I was not expecting that. And then there's a passage of time. Time goes by, but the amount of time that goes by does not feel as long as it claims to be. It really doesn't. And that's a problem, because they really try to sell to you that it's been this longer amount of time when it hasn't been. But there was a reason for it, I think, involving Tony Stark and what happens with him after this passage of time, and how it affects the movie later. But it just didn't feel right to me. It didn't feel like it didn't feel like it was really that amount of time, because people are still grieving, and understandably so. People would still be grieving after an event like this, but it almost comes across like it's only a year later, and it's just, I feel like people would be a little bit more resilient by the amount of time that did pass. So that was weird. And one of the biggest complaints I have with the movie is the first third. The first third of the movie is a complete tonal mess. Because after Infinity War, after that, I am not in the mood for jokes or shenanigans. I want them to go forward and do something awesome, get revenge, figure everything out. But they go with how they wrap up Infinity War in the first 15 minutes. It goes back to typical Marvel shtick, which I didn't like, because I was not in the mood for jokes. It wasn't a jokey time. If there's ever a time where I wanted a more Zack Snyder-y approach to something, it would be in the first third of this movie. And the middle third is when it starts picking up, because it goes in the direction. Now, I don't necessarily like the direction they go in, of how they undo what Thanos did, because I find it very contrived, and it leads to a lot of plot holes. Now, are any of the Marvel movies really perfect? Of course not. There's plot holes in all of them. But this is one where my suspension of disbelief took a back seat, and I started thinking realistically. And a large part of that was because they try to sell you that they're going to do it realistically, and they really, really don't. It's just an excuse to have a funny shtick and a little bit of... It almost turns into like a heist movie, like a bank robbery sort of thing almost. And that stuff is fun and warrants the comedy. The character interactions are pretty good there, and the character pairings are not what you'd expect. Character-wise, everybody's great. I love how involved Ant-Man is in this movie, because I love Paul Rudd as Ant-Man. He's so lame, but he owns the fact that he's so lame, how self-aware he is. And this Ant-Man and Wasp is in my top 5 favorite Marvel movies. It is so fun and stupid. I love it. And another thing that's a big positive of this movie for me, may not be a positive for a lot of you, I don't know, is Captain Marvel is barely in the film. Now, I liked the Captain Marvel movie fine. I didn't hate it. I dislike the actress who plays her. I don't like Brie Larson, and it's not that I think she's a bad actress. I think I've seen her in interviews. She just seems like a nasty kind of person, and her music career was hilariously terrible. And I'm not in the same camp. A lot of people think she's miscast. I think she's fine. I just don't find the character interesting. And with how little she is in this movie, I was like, I liked it, but at the same time, I was like, well, then what the fuck did I need to see Captain Marvel then? You couldn't do a Hawkeye or Black Widow situation where they never had standalone movies and they're there? I guess she's too powerful. I don't know. Her movie should have come out way sooner. And even then, she's barely in the film. But that was a plus for me. I don't like her. I don't enjoy her. Ant-Man, I love him. I love how present he is in this. And there are two characters that have changes to them. The first being the Hulk. And I like the change because I don't think they're going to continue with this character. In fact, I don't think they can continue with this character because I'm pretty sure Universal owns the movie rights to the Hulk, which is why there hasn't been a Hulk standalone film since the Edward Norton one. And that's fine because also I don't think Hulk is really interesting enough to warrant anything beyond an origin story. So what they do with him here, I think, is perfect, and I don't have an issue with it. Some of the comedy they do with it, I do have an issue with it because it goes on too long, and none of that is Mark Ruffalo's fault. He's actually pretty good at comedy and doing this sort of awkward comedy. It just didn't work here for some of the scenes. And then there's a change with Thor. Now this change is very entertaining at first, and it really reminds you of that one season of It's Always Sunny where Rob McElhenney decided that he needed to change how Mac looked. I think it was season 10 of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. But my problem with Thor is that the jokes with him and the different character he is basically goes on way too long, and it just becomes kind of irritating at some point, particularly in the more serious scenes. And none of it, again, same with the Hulk, none of this is Chris Hemsworth's fault. I think a lot of this is because Thor is almost a completely different character in the MCU now than when he started, like, almost entirely. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the studios realized Chris Hemsworth was a relatively funny actor, or he just has a good charisma to him, beyond being just an attractive guy. So they're really capitalizing on that, and in this one, it feels like they just said, make it funnier, Chris, and without any idea of what to do. And yeah, his character, his new character, I'm trying to be vague, it just feels a little off towards the end because it just never stops. But, okay, and another thing, this movie also really shows what a clusterfuck Age of Ultron was, because I liked Age of Ultron when I saw it, but it's so clear that elements they introduced in Age of Ultron are not followed through at all here. Like, okay, obviously, the first one everyone would notice is Scarlet Witch's accent from Infinity War. She doesn't have an accent. She has, well, American accent. That's how she sounds. That's not how she sounded in Infinity War, and I don't think that's how she sounded in Civil War. It's been a while since I've seen that. But one thing they introduced in Age of Ultron between Black Widow and Hulk, it never progresses ever, and it's to the point where I'm like, why did you even introduce that? I don't have a problem with it, what they introduced in Joss Whedon's Age of Ultron, but it's not followed through with here. So that really is just a detriment. And also, going back to, I already said how much I love that Ant-Man is involved in this movie. Paul Rudd has a scene in this movie towards the beginning. It's really effective, and where he's acting opposite of his daughter, and he really does a great job. Like, you don't really see Paul Rudd in a lot of, like, I don't know, heart-tugging dramas, but he was acting his ass off in that scene. I just wanted to give props to that performance. But, yeah, so the first half of the movie, totally, it's all over the place. 1 minute, it's super serious and super depressing, and then it's jokey. And, again, if there was ever a time I wanted a miserable Zack Snyder approach, I can't believe I'm saying that, it would be in that first third of the movie. Now, the second third, that's where you can have the fun. That's where it's campy. That's where it can be a little bit more silly. There's some really fun things they do there. It really is done in a way where it's kind of capping off on a lot of character arcs and just almost serves as a recap as the entire MCU, which is really interesting. But at times it also did feel like one of those Nickelodeon shows you'd see where they do a similar sort of plot line. I wasn't entirely in love with the direction they took with that, but that's what they chose, and as is, it's entertaining and it'll get you through. But the issue with that is, again, after what happened in Infinity War, with how dark and bleak it ended, I wanted a steady build-up back to hope. This did not give you a steady build-up back to hope. It gave you hope, took it away, and then would just go back and forth giving you jokes and hope along. It was all over the place. First third, second third. We're going somewhere, but it also just feels like there's not a lot of weight to it, if that makes sense. But whatever. And then moving on to the last third. Now, the last third of the movie I have almost zero issues with, and this is what everybody's been waiting for. The biggest complaint I have is that obviously there's going to be a big epic last battle with Thanos, and my only issue is that I wish it went on longer, but I think that's a sign of a good movie where they just give you more, or they make you want more. But at the same time here, I don't feel like this movie needed to be as long as it is, even for what it is. Like, it is a send-off to the old MCU. But I feel like they could have cut some things out, particularly in that first third, or at least a different approach, or to extend this battle. And the battle is fantastic. All the characters are great. I wish there was more character-based interactions in this battle, because there are characters that you only see a little bit, or who didn't even have that much screen time in the previous movie, and you just want to see them work off each other. Particularly, the one that did annoy me a little bit was Ant-Man, because, again, this has nothing to do with even being an Ant-Man fan. It's just that once the battle starts, he kind of takes a back seat. And the same with Hulk. He takes a back seat as well. But with Hulk, there's a reason that he takes a back seat. With this one, there's no reason for Ant-Man to be so distant. And there's a bunch of other characters that just kind of feel like background pieces. But it is interesting, because I can't think of any other movie in the world where you'd watch this big epic battle going on and you know almost everybody in the battle. You see everybody's face. Now, one of the downsides with this battle is that there's no stakes, in the sense that you know the character, that a lot of the more less represented characters in the battle are going to be fine. The ones you are concerned about are the main three of Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America. One of the issues with the movie is there are character deaths from the last film, obviously, but I never know which ones I need to care about, because the MacGuffin of the movie basically can control time, space, life, death, so I never know which ones I need to be concerned about, so it doesn't hit you till the end which characters are really gone and which ones aren't. Now, the characters that are actually truly gone, I was shocked about, for two of them in particular. I mean, I was shocked at, actually, I should say I was shocked at all of them, but I only cared about two of them, if that makes sense. But that was an interesting decision. But again, it's hard to know how to feel for some of these deaths when the MacGuffin is what it is. I mean, and another downside to knowing the grander plan is I know Tom Holland is going to be fine. I know everything with Spider-Man is going to work out, because they've announced another Spider-Man movie. There's a fucking trailer for Far From Home, so that all worked out. And then we know there's going to be a Guardians 3. I know these grander plans, so certain characters I know are going to be fine. It really would have been smarter of the studio to not say anything about upcoming films past Endgame. That way, we could all be on the edge of our seats not knowing what the next phase is going to be, because now we have a pretty good idea of what the next phase is going to be. And the final conclusion with Thanos, and the final standoff between him and another character, I'm not going to say who, and how that resolves itself, was absolutely perfect. It was pitch perfect. The audience cheered. I've never been one to clap at a movie theater. The fucking people who made it aren't there. But I enjoyed it. I mean, when you see I'm a New Yorker, so you see a movie like this in the middle, like opening day in New York City, it's going to have cheers, but this was even beyond what I was expecting, I guess. But in a good way. And the way the movie goes out is it's almost, I don't want to say Empire Strikes Back. It's a little bit more bittersweet in some regards. But it's not quite Jedi, where it feels like super campy, or not super campy, but like everything worked. It's definitely an in-between of Jedi and Empires and things. Like, there's a lot of good, but there's a lot of sad to it. And the emotional moments works quite well for the audience. There's a quiet moment, and I could hear crying everywhere. And it wasn't getting to me, but that's just because I'm a cold-hearted man who doesn't feel emotions anymore. But overall, it's a good movie. I can't say that I feel that it was worth the 11-year, 22 movie build up to it. That last third is incredibly satisfying, but what you have to sit through to get to that last third is not perfect. Those are my thoughts. I still think it's a good movie. I just don't feel like it's this big epic until the last third. But what you have to sit through to get to that last third is inconsistent, entertaining, but inconsistent and at times kind of annoying. But it doesn't matter what I say, this movie is going to make its money back and everybody is going to love it. So, the final score for Avengers Endgame is an 8 out of 10. It's a good movie, but didn't blow me away for the majority of the runtime. But those are just my thoughts. Like I always say, my channel's small. I can gladly reply to comments or leave a comment and let me know what you guys think. And if you want to talk about spoilers, head on over to my Twitter and just tweet me shit and I will respond, because I could go off a little bit on the spoilers. I decided to keep this spoiler free, and look at how fucking long the video is anyway. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.